All right, get ready. We're diving deep into planners and project management today. But not just the basics, we're going to see how the pros do it and how you can use those same techniques to conquer your to-do list and finally reach those goals you've been thinking about. And the sources you gave us this time, articles on project management tools, tips for families, even some reviews of those really cool Japanese planners, it's a lot.
It is. And what's so interesting is that these sources, although they seem really different at first glance, they all kind of come back to the same core principles. The fundamentals of planning really are the same, whether you're, running a huge project worth millions of dollars or just trying to get dinner on the table without the usual chaos.
Okay, so before we jump into the specific techniques, I think it would be helpful to step back and look at the big picture for a second. Can you explain what we even mean by effective time management? I mean, it's more than just having a calendar full of appointments, right?
Right. Think of it like this. A calendar is just a tool, a place to record your time. But time management, that's about making a conscious choice about how you spend those precious hours to make sure you're working towards your goals. It's about making choices, setting priorities, being intentional with your time, not just letting it slip away.
So that's where the planners come in. They're not just pretty notebooks. They're tools to help us make those decisions about our time.
Exactly. And one of the sources you gave us, The Beginner's Guide to Planning, breaks down this process really well. It starts with a yearly overview, just like how a project manager might use a high-level timeline for a big project.
Okay, so I get the yearly overview thing for birthdays and holidays and such, but if I'm being honest, I'm not great at that whole yearly goals thing. Any tips on making that more, I don't know, manageable?
One way to approach it is to think about the different parts of your life, personal stuff, work stuff, relationships, health, things like that. And then try setting just one or two goals for each. Keep in mind, these should be your big aspirations for the year.
Okay, breaking it down like that makes sense. And then the guide mentions quarterly planning. So is that basically like those project managers breaking down a big project into smaller parts, right?
Exactly. You're taking those big, sometimes kind of scary yearly goals
Yeah.
and dividing them into more manageable chunks. And that way you can track your progress, make adjustments as you go,
Yeah.
celebrate those small victories along the way,
Mhm.
kind of like project milestones.
Oh, I can definitely see how that would help keep you motivated. Seeing those small wins, that's got to feel good. And then you just keep breaking it down further, monthly, weekly, daily planning, right?
That's it. And that's actually where we can really see the connection to professional project management. Think about a tool like a Gantt chart. It's basically a visual timeline,
Yeah.
and project managers use it to map out tasks, dependencies, deadlines, all that.
Wait, are you saying we could use something like a Gantt chart in our personal lives? I always thought of those as being, super complicated tools for these massive projects.
Well, maybe not a full-blown Gantt chart, but the principle behind it, that can be really useful for personal planning too. Imagine making like a simple timeline for a personal project, like planning a vacation or a home renovation. You could visually map out the steps, estimate how long each step will take, maybe even see which tasks need to be done in a specific order. It's like bringing a little bit of that project management magic into your everyday life.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how some of these professional techniques could be adapted to everyday life. But let's be real, sometimes it just feels like you're drowning in to-do lists and appointments and, ugh, just everything. Where do we even begin to bring some order to all that chaos?
Well, that's where those simple but powerful time management strategies come in. And you might be surprised to learn some of them are actually used by project managers as well.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm intrigued. What are these secret weapons that work for, high-powered executives and busy parents like me?
Yeah?
So what are they? These time management secrets, I mean. What can help us get a handle on these to-do lists?
One technique, it works great for both personal and professional planning. It's called the brain dump.
Hmm.
You ever have that feeling where your mind's just racing a million things to do, thoughts swirling around? A
Yeah.
brain dump, it's like you're hitting the reset button on your brain.
I do love a good brain dump. It's so nice to just get everything out of my head and onto some paper. It's like decluttering, but for your mind. Makes room for some clear thinking.
Exactly. And
Oh,
in project management, it's kind of similar to a thing they call risk identification, where they try to identify and document any potential obstacles or problems, trying to anticipate those problems
yeah.
before they can derail the whole project.
Oh, I see. So it's about like getting all those worries and anxieties out of your head so you can actually deal with them strategically instead of just letting them build up. I like that. So what's next? What other time management tools do we have at our disposal?
Right. Next up, it's the classic to-do list. But with a bit of a twist. Instead of just listing everything you need to do, we're going to prioritize them based on how important they are and how urgent. This actually mirrors the critical path concept in project management.
Okay, the critical path, remind me about that again. It rings a bell, but I need a refresher.
Sure. So it's a method they use to figure out the sequence of tasks that are absolutely essential to finish the project on time. By focusing on those critical tasks, project managers can make sure they're using their resources effectively and, minimizing delays.
Ah, okay, so it's like figuring out which tasks are the most crucial, the ones that absolutely have to get done for the project to be successful. And in our own lives, it's about figuring out which activities are going to make the biggest difference, really move us towards our goals.
Exactly. Okay, now let's talk about a technique that can really change the way you approach time management, time blocking. So instead of letting your day be ruled by constant interruptions and distractions, you actually set aside specific blocks of time for different tasks.
Time blocking. Okay. I've heard of it, but to be honest, I haven't had much luck with it. I always end up thinking I can get way more done in a certain amount of time than I actually can, or something unexpected comes up and throws my whole schedule off.
Yeah, I get it. It definitely takes practice, and you got to be flexible. One thing that helps is thinking about the different categories of tasks you have. You know, work stuff, family stuff, personal stuff, errands, all that. And then try assigning specific time slots for each one. It's similar to how a project manager allocates resources for different phases of a project.
So instead of just reacting to whatever comes up, you're making a plan and deciding how you want to spend your time, taking control instead of feeling controlled.
That's it. And another really great thing about time blocking is that it forces you to be more realistic about how much you can actually get done in a day.
Hmm.
So instead of trying to cram in a million things and getting overwhelmed, you can set boundaries and focus on those high priority tasks.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of being realistic, one of the sources we have, it mentioned a technique that I think is really helpful for busy people, the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule. Can you explain how that works with time management?
Sure. The Pareto principle says that about 80% of your results come from just 20% of your effort. So for time management, it's about figuring out which of your activities are the most impactful, the ones that give you the biggest return on your time investment.
So it's about focusing on those tasks that really make a difference instead of getting bogged down in all that busy work that doesn't actually move you forward. Working smarter, not harder. Love it.
Exactly. And a related technique that can make you even more efficient is called batch processing. It's
Yeah.
basically grouping similar tasks together so you can minimize all that context switching and maximize your focus.
Can you give me an example of what that would look like in real life?
Okay, imagine you have a bunch of errands to run, phone calls to make, and emails to respond to. So instead of jumping back and forth between those different tasks, you could set aside a block of time for errands, another for calls, and another for emails. That way, you don't have to constantly switch gears, and you can really get in the zone for each type of activity.
Okay, yeah, I can see how batch processing could be a real game changer. Instead of feeling scattered and reactive all the time, you're grouping things together, creating a flow, and having a more purposeful day.
Exactly. And finally, there's a time management technique that I think a lot of people overlook, but it can be super powerful. Delegation and outsourcing. I mean, even the most skilled time ninjas can't do it all.
Right. So it's about recognizing that you don't have to be a superhero, and it's okay to ask for help or delegate tasks, letting go of that need to control everything.
Exactly. And in project management, that's a key principle. They assign tasks to different team members based on their strengths and expertise. In your own life, it might mean hiring someone to clean your house, asking a friend to help with childcare, or delegating tasks at work so you have more time for those higher priority things.
Wow, I'm already feeling a little more empowered just thinking about all these different strategies. But I'm curious about the tools now, the planners, I mean. You mentioned Japanese planners a few times. What's so special about them? Yeah, I've heard a lot about those Japanese planners, especially that Kokyo Jibunteka. What makes them so different?
Well, Japanese planners are all about minimalism and functionality,
Oh.
like the Jibunteko. It's known for this really cool customizable system. It has these separate booklets, and you can combine them based on what you need, like a daily diary, weekly calendar, a notebook for projects.
Oh, so it's like you build your own planner based on what you want to track and manage. What other kinds of planners are out there?
Oh, so many different styles. Some people, they really like the structure of a traditional planner, like the Erin Condren or the Passion Planner. Those usually have vertical or horizontal weekly spreads, sections for goal setting, sometimes even inspirational quotes.
Oh, yeah, the Passion Planner. I've heard those are great for people who want to connect their everyday tasks to their bigger goals, like bringing more meaning to their daily routine.
That's right. And then there's bullet journals. Those are like the ultimate in flexibility. They're basically just blank notebooks,
Mhm.
and you customize them however you want. Add your own layouts, trackers. You can even get creative with it.
I love the idea of a bullet journal, but I don't think I'm artistic enough to make it look good.
Oh, you don't have to be an artist. That's the great thing about them. You can keep it super simple and functional, or you can go all out with like calligraphy and those fancy spreads. It's all about finding what works for you.
And that seems to be the main takeaway here. The best planner, it's the one you'll actually use, consistently, I mean.
You got it. It might take a bit of experimenting to figure out what you like best. But once you find it, that planner can be a really powerful tool for helping you achieve those goals, big or small.
This has been such a helpful deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new way of looking at planning and time management now. It's not just about, writing down appointments and checking off to-do lists. It's more about being mindful of your time, making sure your actions are helping you reach those goals, and being, kind to yourself when things don't go exactly according to plan.
Very well said. And remember, you don't have to use every single technique we've talked about. Just pick one or two that resonate with you and see how they work in your everyday life.
That's good advice. I'm definitely going to try that time blocking thing again. And maybe even try a simplified Gantt chart for one of my personal projects.
That's great. And remember, you're not alone in this. There's a whole community of people out there who love planning, sharing their tips and tricks, inspiring and encouraging each other. So don't be afraid to connect with people who share your passion for a more organized and fulfilling life.
This has been such a valuable deep dive. We covered everything from the basics of time management to those advanced project management techniques, and even took a look at those awesome Japanese planners and bullet journals.
It's been great unpacking all of this with you. And remember, effective time management, it's not about squeezing every last second out of your day. It's about making conscious choices about how you spend your time so you can live a more meaningful, fulfilling, and productive life.
I feel so inspired and ready to tackle my to-do list. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Happy planning.